Good afternoon and welcome to the After Hours Lunch and Educational Session by Charitable Giving Resource Center. Thanks to the large number of people who have signed on via the webinar. It's become a very popular option that you can just sit at your desk and enjoy. You're just missing out on the pop and refreshments here, so next time feel free to come on in and join us at the office if you can, and thanks again for coming. Today we're going to talk about development plans and what it means to your organization. There's a lot of information I'm going to go over today. I'll be putting out online tomorrow. In fact, Gina David, if you see that name come through on your email, will be sending the slides from today's presentation for those of you who have signed on via webinar. I'm just going to do a quick show of hands of the people here. How many of you have a development plan? Okay, that was the answer I would expect. A lot of people view strategic planning as development planning, and really strategic planning is a precursor to a development plan. So today you're going to hear a lot of terms that you've heard before, things like strategic planning, development plan, relationships, mission, vision, values. Those are all building blocks to what I would call a very strategic fund development plan. Vision without action is a daydream. Action without vision is a nightmare. And focused vision with action is the sweet dream of success. So I hope by the end of today, you feel like you are on the road to that sweet dream of success. The agenda for today is, what is the purpose of a development plan? How do you establish one or create one? And then how do I implement it? That third bullet is the single biggest reason why people aren't successful with their plans. They don't figure out how to implement it and to measure how they implement. So at the end today, I'm going to go into a couple of extra steps and suggestions on how you can take, whether it's your strategic planning that you use as a development plan, or if you follow these 14 steps to create a development plan, how then you put that into action and you achieve that sweet dream of success. So what is the purpose of a development plan? Well, the purpose is to focus on your organization's goals, your method of achieving those goals, and the resources that are required. And how do you do that? Well, there's two ways. If you have a strong and well-supported mission and/or vision statement along with a strategic plan, you can use them as your template for a development plan, and a lot of people do that. I think that's okay, but I think there's a better way of doing it. You're taking it to the next level. On your handout, it says there's 8 steps. There's really 14 steps. So if you're swallowing now, think 14 steps. It's really not that bad. So I'm going to go through and talk about the steps just in little pieces at a time. I want you to, if you have questions, if you jot them down, and people who are on the webinar, if you submit them via the question button, and those of you here will take all the questions at the end. Vision plus action equals success. So the first 4 steps of a development plan. How many of you have a mission statement? Very good. Everyone in the room here has a statement, and I hope that there were lots of hands in lots of offices across the state and across the country. So your mission statement should be your purpose of existence. Why are you here? What do you do? Second step is organization goals and objectives, or a vision statement. Some people don't have both a mission and a vision. They may only have one. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Outcomes and results to share. What are the results of your existence as a nonprofit? These are the stories that you're going to tell. And I'll go into a little more detail on these in the next slide. The 4th step is to compile those stories based on the outcomes and the results. You want to provide reasons to your current and prospective donors as to why they should be donating to your organization. Stories are the single best thing that you can do. So the first 4 steps assist in developing a very compelling story. They understand your mission. They see your vision if you have one. They start hearing the success stories that have been created by either the gifts they've given or the gifts that others have given, and it creates an excitement. This information information can be used to create the what-if scenario. If you're looking at a specific level of a contribution, you can help them understand that a gift at this level will create these results. People like to be a part of something that's big and bold and measurable. So often you'll see in annual campaigns and in capital campaigns where they'll have various levels of giving, and they may even give them some options. You know, for a $500 gift, this is how many children you could help at Orchard Place. Or for $5,000, you can be part of the American Judicature magazine that goes out quarterly. It's also beneficial to utilize the information in these steps. It will identify similarities between the organization's goals and the prospective donor's goals. Now, some of you might be thinking, why do I need to do that? In relationship building, it is really important to understand what your donor's goals are. Why are they giving to you? What do they hope to accomplish personally by giving to you? If you can get to that point in your relationship, kudos to you. You have gone that extra step that a lot of fundraisers don't. It's not all about you. It's not all about your organization. It's all about the donor. Listen. Sometimes it's best just to sit and bite your tongue and just listen to what they're telling you about your organization and themselves. Steps 5 through 7. Before you look ahead, you need to look around. Gather facts and identify constituencies. Donor history, looking at your list, who's been giving to you, how long have they been giving to you. So now you're in that compiling stage. All of these steps, it's action-oriented. You're doing things. Who are the people that have been giving to you, and who do you think might give to you? Are there other organizations or groups, maybe membership groups or groups within the community that you think, gosh, they might be interested in what I'm doing at my organization? Chris is here from Wesley Life, and he deals with an older adult population. So when he looks at donors and constituencies, he wants to think about what do the residents who live at Wesley Life desire, want, and need, and bring those people to the table. And are there other constituents, other groups that ultimately will want to live in a place like Wesley Life? Are there groups that understand what it means to live in a comfortable setting as you live out the end of your life? Maybe it's children of parents who live there. So that whole constituency can be current and future constituents. Solicit feedback from sample constituents. You can either host focus groups or do interviews. Sometimes it's nice to sit down with a group of people and say, gosh, you guys have been giving to our organization now for 10 years or more. Can you tell me why it's been so important to you to continue to give to our organization? What is it we're doing, or what is it that makes you feel good about giving to us? A lot of times donors are very kind of taken aback because you've asked them, tell me a little more about why you fund our organization. Develop a fundraising committee, and you note I have if needed. In some organizations, it can be a large enough structure that you've got lots of things that board members or volunteers are doing, and you may have some who just want to focus on the fundraising aspect of what you're doing. If that's the case, you may want to develop a committee that just thinks about fundraising and development issues in your organization. So these steps can be time-consuming. You think about it. If you sat down and interviewed small groups of donors, you know, some of you might have 15,000, 16,000 donors or hundreds of donors. How do you get that many people to the table? You don't have to talk to everybody. You can do them in small groups, but it does take time. But bringing people together is critical in preparing supporting documentation and information for developing fundraising strategies, methods, and goals. So strategic planning, we talked about that word early on, and your development plan. The development plan is kind of the big view, the next 12 to 18 months out, what you're going to be doing, when it happens, who's doing it, how you're measuring it, in order to create a sound development plan, you want to have information that backs what you're doing. You want to have those stories that tell why giving to you is important. The feedback received on fundraising strategies can be used to improve them. Ask people, how was the gala? We saw that you and your wife left a little early. Was there something about the event, or was it just a personal matter that you need to attend to and had to leave? Ask them what they thought of, the Duck Derby. It's a perfect example of an event where solicit from the crowd as you're out there. Why did you participate in this? Thanks for coming out. I see you brought your family. What made you come? What will make you come back again? What could we do to make this better? Develop gift range charts. This is important, and a lot of people will have giving clubs, but to have a gift range, remember as you grew up, Mom and Dad set parameters for you. They told you things you could and you couldn't do, and so you knew what those expectations were of you. Donors are a lot like that. If you help them understand that you're bringing to the table ideas and that the expectation is you hope they'll look at them as an opportunity, let them pick their opportunity. Develop strategies for connecting and contacting each source. Are you going to do this via direct mail? And keep in mind, when you use direct mail, that's a whole another webinar or educational setting. Direct mail, you should plan on 3 to 4 touches before anybody does anything with that information. And a lot of people will buy lists and they'll send it out that first time and they're waiting for everything to come back and nothing happens. That's probably rule of thumb. They're not going to do anything that first time, especially if they don't have a connection to you. So make sure you're doing multiple direct mail pieces to them. Phone-a-thons, this is a great source of connecting with people. Just picking up the phone, giving them a call. Just don't do it during election year, because that fall you're probably not going to get many answers. I know at my house we tend not to answer the phone at night. But just a conversation with somebody on the phone and soliciting a gift. This is a big concept in higher education. Many of you may have your alma mater who calls you, and it's usually a student who's calling from your school saying, could you help us? Could you help the other kids that are coming? So that goes back to that other piece where you're making that connection by them supporting this higher education institution. You're supporting the student who's now talking to a prospective donor or a donor. It puts all those pieces together. They feel like they now know what their gift is doing. Special events, lots of different things you can do there. The most important is personal contact, particularly for some of those larger gifts. Relationship building is cultivation, and relationship building is more than sending an email. It's more than just direct mail. It's more than being in your office every day from 8 to 5. You should be out of your office, talking to people, listening to what it is that's important to them. You may hear clues that tell you about the kinds of gifts or the sizes of gifts that might be a potential for you down the road. The next one is identify resources required for fund development. So how much is it going to cost to do this direct mail piece? Are you having it printed outside? Are you doing it in-house? What kind of paper you're going to use? How much postage is there going to be needed for a phone-a-thon? Is everybody going to use their cell phones, or are we bringing in a bank of phones? Again, those are all things that you need to be thinking about, because as part, again, of this development plan, it's like the next 12 to 18 months laid out in front of you. You'll see what it is you want to do, phone-a-thon, then all the pieces. The goal is to raise X amount of dollars. What are the objectives or the stepping stones that get you to the achievement of that goal? A lot of that happens in here. The expenses, the items, the volunteers, your board. So it's thinking about the plan. It's taking that vision and putting that action with that vision. Another important piece is, what vehicles do you have in place for accepting gifts? somebody were to call your office today and say, I've got this really nice RV. It's about 5 years old, and I'd like to give it to your nonprofit. I bet I can guess what most of you would say. You'd swallow hard and say, thanks, but we can't do that. We don't accept that kind of gift at this time. Well, there are lots of ways that you can level that playing field with some of the larger institutions and accept gifts like that or gifts of art. There's even a story about a gentleman who was donating his prized collection of animals, taxidermied animals that he had personally collected over his lifetime, and he wanted to give them to a charity. They didn't really want them, but it was a very nice offer. And when they found out that there was a tool that they could be connected to make that gift happen, it made the donor very happy and it made the charity very happy. So don't discount that you can't do something. If you ever run into situations where you wonder, gosh, how would I accept a gift like this? A farmer wants to give me grain. What do I do with that? I have somebody who wants to leave me a car. We don't really deal in cars. Those are questions, if you call us, we can help connect you to the right people to make that happen. And then plan giving. You may have people who feel like they don't have many resources now, but they'd like to make a gift upon their death or in the future. Are you ready to have that conversation? Another part of this development plan that we're talking about. How do all these pieces fit in? At this point, we're getting to about 3/4 of the way through the steps, and I can tell just here that people are thinking, good Lord, this is a lot of work. Why would I do this? It is a lot of work. And the first time you pull this development plan together, it's going to take a lot of time, it's going to take a lot of attention, and it's probably going to cause a few headaches, either for you or people in your office. But I will guarantee you that if you follow it with goal setting and measurement, it will be the single most useful thing that you have in your office, because it is a roadmap to the success of your nonprofit. And when we're done today, I've got some examples here, and I'll have Gina send these out as well, of some nonprofits who have gone through these steps and have created their development plan and how they put it together. Everybody's looks a little different, so I don't want you to think that this is a cookie-cutter approach, because it's not. The way that you create your development plan could be very different than the person sitting next to you or one of the people on the webinar. It's what works best in your office. You could be a one-person office. You could be a 100-person office. So depending upon kind of the environment that you're in will determine the kind of development plan that you do. And by seeing some examples, I think that will help. These steps are helpful in implementing your fundraising efforts and accepting gifts. So you've got this plan, you've put action in place, you've had these special events, you've had these phone-a-thons, you've done the direct mail pieces, and the gifts come in. Now you know what to do. You're implementing it, and you've got your accepting gift policies all put in place. The last 3 steps. Now that you've got the gifts, what do you do with them? Well, you want to thank people. This step cannot be repeated enough times. It's nice to not only thank them for the gift they gave, but one of the nice things to do is, if you have the ability to look back on your software system and see, gosh, they've been giving for 15 years. It's amazing what a little handwritten note that says, Krista, thank you for giving to us for 15 years. We really appreciate it. What does that tell that donor? It tells them that you're paying attention. It's not just a form letter that you're signing and putting in an envelope and sending out with a stamp, but you've taken the time to look back and you understand that they've been a part of you and your organization for 15 years. So it's those little things that will make a big difference. Record keeping. This not only takes giving into account, but conversations. I can't stress enough how important it is to document when you have conversations with donors, what you talked about, what the next step is. You know, if one of you were to decide you needed to leave the organization and somebody else comes in and there's no information, you have to start all over. So figure out a personal technique for documenting those conversations. I know we've got a bunch of people from Orchard Place on the line, and I know that they do a very good job of detailing those kinds of calls. Even if it's a phone call, get it into the system and let somebody know that you called. Maybe somebody else in your office is getting ready to make a call to that same person, and if they look it up, they can say, oh, gosh, Kristen called her 2 days ago. You know, I better make sure that I know that, so when I call, she doesn't say, well, someone from your office just called me. Be aware of what's happening with that donor. And evaluation. That could also be measurement. After you complete events, phone-a-thons, direct mail, look back and say, how successful was this? Did we achieve the goals that we set out to do? Were there problems? Were there successes that we need to find in there? Document that. And again, when you see some of these physical development plans, you'll see how some organizations have put into place some goal setting where they keep track of where they are all along the way, so that next year when the phone-a-thon comes around again, they have this great documentation that says, gosh, they started this on the 6th, but it says they should have started 2 months earlier because it just didn't work. Boy, is that helpful when you come in to do that? Absolutely. So the last 3 steps are the most important. They cultivate and grow your donor base. They help compile and store the data. That kind of data can be very abundant depending upon the size of your organization. Again, some of the higher education nonprofit organizations have thousands of alumni in their databases. Some of you may only have a few hundred or a few thousand. So compiling and storing that is really important. And then evaluating your fundraising efforts each year is critical for the subsequent years. So you can see we've talked a little bit about the mission and the vision. Strategic planning and fund development really incorporates what are your values, looking at what people around you are doing, figuring out what your strengths, your limitations, your opportunities are around you, and then creating SMART goals. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Nothing happens until we plan, and good plans have goals and objectives. If you can think of the sidewalk to a house, think of the house as the goal, and the sidewalk is the objective. It helps you reach that goal. So before we dive into that bigger discussion, let's talk a little bit about goals and objectives. Again, a goal relates to our aspirations, our purpose, and our vision. For example, we want to increase the retention of our employees. The objective is the battle plan or the stepping stones to that. So it leads you to that goal. There could be lots of paths to that goal or lots of objectives to get to that goal. Those goals are all going to be a part, again, of this development plan. What goals do you have for your phone-a-thon? What goals do you have for your year-end appeal? And what are the objectives in helping you get to that goal? SMART goals are the most well-known method for setting the objectives and doing it the SMART way. And I'm going to spend just a little bit of time on this because this is the one area when I work with nonprofits, they're like, gosh, Sue, I just don't understand. We had this week-long strategic planning session, and we have this three-ring binder full of all these great ideas. Why is nothing happening? Well, it's because they weren't smart about it. They have great vision, but no action. Nobody took action to put all those great ideas into place. SMART goals are specific, they're measurable, achievable, realistic, because you can have very big goals, but it's not realistic because you don't have the number of people to help you achieve it. So make sure they're realistic, and then they're time-bound. You can measure when they need to be done. So we're going to talk a little bit about this. Specific means that the objective is concrete, detailed, focused, and well-defined. So some of the specific objectives might be, what are we going to do? Use strong action verbs to describe this. Why is it important? Who's going to do what? When do we want this to be completed? How are we going to do that? What strategies will be used? We can go down to, is it clear what needs to happen? Is our outcome clear? So the S in SMART goals is being specific about what it is you want to do. Measurable is just that. It means the measurement source, we've identified a way to track and determine that what we've done was either successful or not. If you recall a couple of slides ago, we said that our goal was to increase the retention of our employees. Well, that's a pretty big goal, pretty broad, kind of open-ended almost. How do we measure that we've increased the retention of our employees? Well, there'd be some tools. Do we go back and look how long people were staying with us? We implemented this plan. Now how long are people staying with us? How do you know that change has occurred? You need to set in place what's happening now in order to look at what will happen at the end of whatever that action was you created. Achievable. If the objective is too far into the future or it's too big, it's going to be difficult to keep people in your office and maybe even you excited about it. So you can have long-range goals, but there's going to be lots of little ones that lead up to the accomplishment of that big goal. Can you get it done in the proposed time frame? Do you understand what the limitations are around attempting to do whatever this goal is? Has anyone else ever done it? And is it possible? R is realistic, meaning that you have the resources necessary to get the job done. Maybe retention of employees is because you can't ever give them raises, so they leave. So is it realistic to have that as a goal if you don't have the resources to put into that? Probably not. So make sure that you have the resources that are necessary to get that job or that specific objective or goal done. And the last one is time-bound. Really, it's just creating deadlines, setting dates to things. You have this wonderful strategic plan. You have this great mission. Now what? Well, I'd like to see you put those into SMART goals so that as you lay out your development plan, and it's really a calendar for the next 12 to 18 months, what happens next month? Who's doing what to get that done? When does it have to be done? How am I going to measure that it was done? And what happens if we get a couple weeks out from that and they say, not going to work? That's okay. Then you look at the next steps and you reevaluate and you redo the time bound. You set different dates if you can. But this forces you to talk about what you're doing, who's doing it, when it's done, and if you have the resources. So this is an example of a SMART goal that one of our clients did, and this was a daycare center, a nonprofit daycare center, and they want to increase the retention of their employees. They had lots of turnover. Well, when we started talking to some of their employees, they said, you know what, I feel like a public school teacher or a teacher out in the industry. I have to bring my own supplies in. There's never enough here for me to do the job I need to do. And when I have to do that, it means I make less money. So I'm going somewhere where they can make this happen for me. So one of the things that they wanted to do was to create access to a stock room of needed supplies that the staff was currently purchasing on their own. So we talked about what are the things that we need to do to achieve that goal. So there were lots of little actions. First, we needed to propose the contents of that room. What do they need? How much? And is it realistic? Do we have the resources to put everything in there that they need? Then determine where the stock room will be located, the cost to establish it, policies for checking out and utilizing the stock room, and then submit the total cost and the plan to the board so that it can be budgeted for next year. So this is actually something that just started. They're currently putting together their proposal for the content of the stock room. So you can see under the measurements, the staff feels like the list contains the items and volumes that they can use. That's a measurement. You can ask staff, Is this room doing what you wanted it to do? Does it have the things in it that you needed? Who's accountable? The staff is. The resources, the staff list of needs are the resources that they want. And they wanted to have that list done by August 1, and they do. The next step, is, as you recall, was to where is the stock room going to be? Well, where the staff wanted it to be, a very centralized location, there was already something there. So they needed to get approval for long-term use of space. And that was going to be done by the staff and others as needed, which meant the administrators. And some of the resources, Rhonda is their executive director, and the city of Boone, there is some funding that they could have gotten from that city. So you can see that each one of these specific actions you can take all the way out. Now, if they hadn't gotten the first one done by August 1st, that may have meant that these last 4 had to be changed just a little bit. You know, maybe there was an extenuating circumstance that occurred that meant that they needed to change or alter what that looked like. But they have these goals in a 3-ring binder by project, and then in the project they have it by month. And they flip through it, and they just look at it at every staff session. And if it's specific to one group of people, then they have their SMART goal book with their information in. They pull it out and they look. They have a fundraiser. So there is a book that has SMART goals in there for that specific fundraiser. When do I need to start? Who do I need to get involved? Who's responsible? What resources do I need, and do we have those yet? So SMART goals can be hugely beneficial. The skinny is that fund development plans, if prepared and used appropriately, can further the advancement of your nonprofit organization. They can strengthen your existing relationships, not only with your donors, but within staff within your organization. They feel like they have a plan, that you're not just running by the seat of your pants. It's being proactive instead of reactive. And it can develop new relationships. Components of a development plan will include cultivation of donors for specific reasons. That can help you to develop new and existing relationships. The key is planning and managing the measurement of each of your objectives. And again, it's not a cookie-cutter approach. I'm going to end there. I've got some things I'm going to hand out to the people who are here today. But if you have questions, those of you who are on the webinar, if you could submit those, Tim will bring those up here and we'll answer those. And if there's anybody here in the room that has a question, I'm going to pass out to each of you. Here's a copy. Christy, you want to hand those around? That's just a copy of a SMART goal sheet, and I'll send that to you electronically. You'll see with some of the examples that I have, some organizations don't even use that template. They've come up with a way that works for them. Again, this is not a cookie-cutter approach. Everyone's development plan will look a little different, but that development plan is a bunch of pieces all pulled together so that you can see the big picture. What is your strategic plan? What is your mission? What are all of the events that you do? How do those all fit in this 12 to 18-month plan? Who's doing what when, and how do you measure the success of that?
I have a question. When you create your development plan, do you base it on the personality of the person that will be leading that task, or this is the job that needs done regardless of who's in that position?
I think, Krista, you need to look at both. Krista's question, in case you didn't hear, was when you are pulling this together and there are tasks to be done, do you look at the individual, or do you just say, this is the position that has to do it, even if I know this person isn't capable? You can't do that. It won't happen. So you've already created a little bit of kind of failure, if you want to call it that. You do need to look at the personalities and the tasks that are at hand. It might mean that you have to reevaluate someone's job description or a particular job within your organization. Maybe it's not meeting the needs that you need it to meet. So by following these measurements and these SMART goals, it often can throw a flag up to say, hey, this is an area we need to look closer at. This isn't working. So it's meant to help you not get into those pitfalls that some people fall into in fundraising where it's like, gosh, nothing's happening. Well, it could be a personality, and that's why it's not happening, so let's figure out who else should be doing this. Maybe it's not that position. I've got a couple examples here that I'm going to send around. This is actually three different goals for an organization. This is a nonprofit that is has recently been pulled together, and recent I'm saying in the last 5 years, but it's only been 6 volunteers who have gotten it off the ground. It's starting to garner some real excitement by people, so we're helping them figure out, we've done strategic planning with them. We're now helping to set up their organization the way it should be with an executive director and some staff. So these are some specific groupings of SMART goals that are helping them with their development plan for the next 12 to 18 months. In this particular nonprofit, this is going to change vastly from this year to next year. Once they have an executive director who is a paid position that's working on this full time, things are going to start clicking faster, so the dates will be quicker next year. But this, I hope, will give you an idea of how somebody did take that and now they've put it into action. The next one I'm going to hand out, this is with a group down in Louisville, Kentucky, just a great young organization that does women's Bible study groups, and she has produced some books and does it all from a nonprofit perspective, and they had really never thought about what they're doing. It was all kind of reactive instead of proactive. So we helped them pull together a development plan, create SMART goals, and really kind of pull all of the pieces of the things they were doing very well. Great strategic plan, no action. Great mission statement, but they weren't telling anybody about it. They weren't sharing it. They didn't know what to do with it. So this is their development plan, and these are the SMART goals that go with this. So you're going to see they're very different than what you saw up on the screen, but this is what works for them. Some people actually, Christy, can I have you hand that back? Some people will actually put the development plan in a calendar format. So maybe at the front of this 3-ring binder, you have 18 months worth of calendars that tell you, oh, this event is here, check the blue binder. And there's all your information and all your SMART goals. Again, it's what works best for you. Some people like to have everything in one place. Some like it all electronic. Some like it to be viewed in 1 or 2 sheets. And again, as you'll see, the things that are coming around, it's very different based on the organization. Other questions? That is a lot of information, and development planning is not an easy task. It takes time, it takes attention, and it takes patience. It can be very frustrating. You're thinking, why am I doing this? It's not, nothing's happening. I'm spending a lot of time putting this into place. But again, it helps you to create a very solid foundation for all of the things and all of the hats that you wear. It pulls in your marketing plan. It pulls in your strategic planning. All of those things are a part of this larger vision. So tomorrow, those of you who are online and those of you who are here, you can expect an email that has electronic copies of what you've seen today and a copy of the presentation. In case you need that for any reason, you are welcome to use it, share it, critique it. Again, the webinar people, you'll receive an evaluation via email. We'd love to know your comments. This is how we understand how we can better serve you as nonprofits. And if you have ideas about things that you want to learn about down the road, certainly submit those and let us know. We do have some coming up in the course of the next few months. We'll be doing a succession planning one. A lot of people give me this look. It's kind of like, for nonprofits, nobody succeeds in nonprofits. They just leave and we have empty spots. Well, you can plan for that. And while that is certainly probably more the rule, is that people do hop from one nonprofit to another for better opportunities, there are a lot of organizations who look to having a plan in place for when that happens, that you don't have kind of the flat line. So that's coming up in November. There'll be some coming up Stelter and Company will be doing one. We're excited to announce a new partnership with them where we can offer you some planned giving collateral materials for those who are small nonprofits. You know that you've not been able to do that because of the minimum numbers, quantities that they require. We've created a partnership with them that will be able to help some of the smaller nonprofits with those collateral materials. It's very exciting. We're also going to have a webinar coming up yet before the end of the year that talks about what is this whole new healthcare and how does that affect my donors and potentially their giving to my organization. So watch for some of those emails coming out. With that, I'm not going to belabor everybody. Thank you for coming. Give us a call if you have any questions. And again, we'll send out some backup information tomorrow. Have a great weekend.